The Seahawks spent 60 minutes of football this past Saturday, putting their belt to the San Francisco 49er ass to the tune of 41-6 in a dominating effort from literally the start to the finish. It all began with a Rashid Shaheed kickoff return, which was a wonderful one at that. It's got a couple of different very cool things going on the play, but just a beautiful return to go out there and go get the lead, and Seattle never looked back. And this is a game that is one like so many that you can look for those same similar tenets. I'll tell you what, it gets hard to do this wrap-up video. Not because it isn't fun, not because it's enjoyable to celebrate these wins, but because it's hard to establish to you folks a difference in some of the ways these wins are coming about. It is that same formula. It is that same blueprint back at play. The best defense in football, the best special teams in football, a running game that continues to come more alive with each successive game through the back half of this schedule and now can compete with the likes of seemingly anybody, and an explosive, efficient passing attack. It all intermixed together to give you the kind of performance you got today. And as we've seen so many times now through the back half of this schedule, it was a brand of football that they've been building towards, that they've been refining, not that they've just suddenly found now here in the playoffs. And it's what's led to victory. It's what's led to... This was a game that had shades of much of what we saw from a couple of weeks ago. The Niners were walking into this game limping, wounded. They've played a lot of games in a short period of time here on the back half of the schedule, which has them no doubt kind of beaten down a little bit. I think you could feel that from them in this game. And Seattle then matched that, maybe sensing a little bit of blood in the water by dialing up that physicality a little bit extra bit. They were getting after that offensive line. The offensive line for the Seahawks on their side of it, of course, was doing an equivalent as far as really being physical up front, getting some push, opening up some holes to the running backs and allowing them some space to work with. But the defense was once again outstanding. I don't know if this is going to be a defense that'll rise to become a legendary defense, but they are in the makings of. They put a lot of work into getting into this direction of things. And this team now, if they can go get 2 wins, has an opportunity, especially if they can cement it with a couple of more performances similar to this one, of being a defense that can be held in as high regard as that Legion of Boom team of old. That we will be saying Legion of Boom, and then we'll be saying the dark side, and then we'll be saying them together. It would be one of the most rarest things to ever be seen in the NFL. You get a legendary defense, but what once? Like a shooting star, they say. You don't see teams get 2 of them. And yet the Seattle Seahawks might be just flirting with that. It was a defensive performance that's not dominant just off the back of an individual performance. Yes, Ernest Jones was sensational. Still a tackling machine as ever. Then he's out there jumping around on an interception in the middle of the field for his 6th pick of the year. I thought this guy was supposed to be a liability in coverage. What? And then he's also coming up just in coverage after a man's made a catch, then a little bit of another part of this game, and able to get there and just rip the ball out on a pure just rip out fumble that he totally sets up. He drives up to the tackle. He sets the whole move up. You can see him just rip it out. The team was doing that across the board. I saw Drake Thomas do it and a couple other guys at times coming in on tackles. It's purposeful. It was a great game by Ernest Jones, but it was a great game by everybody. Devin Witherspoon was lock solid, tight in coverage. He led the way for you in tackles. Nicky Manwari was out there loose and free, running around, being fast. Reek Woolen's been playing at that high octave, new kind of gear that we've seen him at recently, including helping out as a tackler. There was one point where Witherspoon had a tackle that was just struggling to bring the guy down fully. First down marker's right there, about 3 yards ahead of him. Here comes Woolen in to knock him back and hold him from that first down. It's the defensive line being an absolute wall in the run game. This is from Jaron Reed to Byron Murphy and taking on the double teams, and Leonard Williams and them just being physical as hell. Any edge that was out there was doing their job as well and getting after it. You weren't doing any of the extra special stuff from Mike McDonald in this game and his bag of tricks that he can bring out defensively. This wasn't a stack box kind of game. This wasn't a simulated pressure kind of game. This was, we're going to run the front 4. We're going to drop guys into coverage. It's actually the kind of game plan that a guy like Coach Carroll would have loved to see. You let those front 4 guys get after it, let them run their games, let them try to stay in control. You had some issues at times with controlling Brock Purdy in the pocket. He could break out, he could extend plays. I think there was a stat they showed at one point late on this game that the Niners had a long time in the pocket to try to look down the field to find something, you yet couldn't find things because you were just squishing those windows, those passing windows that they want to throw into, and not making Brock feel like there was anywhere he could kind of fit a ball into without throwing it into danger. And he even threw a couple throws out there where he got a little bit away with it, though I can't fault Brock. He just didn't have a good game, but it was as much of Seattle taking it to him. It's as much of the Niners definitely being down some parts and pieces that had them a little bit less than they normally would be at this point in time. But this is also a Niner offense that's been very successful this year, even despite those pieces against many other teams. And this is more to me about this defense taking it to them than anything about the Niners. More about this defense just getting into its best shape and its best form right now at this time of year. and that we can feel this performance building up to this. Not that it just suddenly pops like lightning, but that this has been coming along and building up to what we saw in this game. 0 for 3 today on 4th downs. Guys just not giving any ground, allowing any kind of push, standing up tall at the tallest of moments, and just never giving that inch defensively. This is that team that I think is starting to round into that shape from a defensive perspective. When we go into that legendary status, there's still more work to be done, and I don't want to be premature on this. But I can't undersell how impressive that defensive performance was, nor how it's a good degree of difficulty doing it against a guy like Shanahan. There aren't a lot of coaches that take down his offenses in such a way, and he was going to throw everything at you in this game, including a wishbone look at one point in this game. That's how deep it got. We got a reverse flea flicker from Shanahan in this game. That's how deep he went into his bag looking for answers here against this Mike Macdonald defense. The offense, to my eyes, was a beautiful thing to see. Run the rock, run the rock, run the rock. It doesn't have to be stylish. You don't have to do extra stuff. I watched this playoff action through a lot of these other teams here this year. I've seen a lot of coaches that have that tendency to want to get to that pass happy nature of things. I have to throw. I got to throw. Well, I got to. Why? If you're en route to almost a 200-yard rushing day, stay in the pocket and keep pounding. And that is what Clint Kubiak did in this football game. He just kept getting after it, understanding those holes were there, understanding that he was getting successful rushing plays. He was getting chunks of yards at times. Kenneth Walker is coming to life in this scheme. You thought with this rushing attack, it was going to take some time to develop. It is a different style of rushing attack that we've had in here than in other years past. It's not just to go up and mash you, maul you kind of rushing attack. It's got more details built within. It takes a little bit more time to get those details refined. That's what they've done. And it's both running back and offensive line, tight ends, wide receivers, all working in conjunction. It's a timing kind of blocking scheme as much as anything else. And the timing's got to be just right and just true. And Walker seems to really be understanding that. I think Charbonnet's been coming along in a big way in that as well. Unfortunately, Sharbs went down in this game due to a knee injury, and so he only had about 4 carries. It was then going to go to Walker to carry that load. And now, for some of you out there that have been kind of trying to wonder and figure out why is they doing this 2 backs at all times, even when there's a hot hand, and still kind of staying with that balance, and because you could then ensure both of these guys at this time of the year right now would be fresh. And if you happen to lose one and you got to go 2 games and throw 25 touches on the back of Walker now to go get yourself a Super Bowl trophy, you can do so because you have had the depth built in. And the depth that's not just now a second guy who's number 2 on the rung, but then a far drop off talent-wise, but a guy, as anything, can keep going strong and is really going to be potentially a difference maker for you at that position. 3 touchdowns rushing from Walker. First time that you've seen that from a Seattle Seahawks running back in the playoffs since Sean Alexander. Yeah, not even Marshawn Lynch did that. And you saw Walker out there, man, that's been vultured a little bit as far as by Charbonnet at times as he does some of the work up there, and then Charbonnet can get those goal line touches. You could see him really sniffing out that end zone. And man, that man's making himself a lot of money with these kind of performances here down the end run of this year, getting up over 100 yards. You found a way to work him back into the passing tack a little bit. I think there would have been even more room for that in this football game if you had to push this more offensively. But this was one where you were getting push. You were opening up the holes. The blocking was sensational. Tight ends, A.J. Barner and Saubert. You got to give those guys a huge tip of the cap in this game as they're getting some beautiful sealed blocks. They're getting movement up the football field. You went to a creative run to Shaheed in this game where you start out with an outside zone look to one side. You have Shaheed come back the other. And then he's got another one of those plays like we saw a couple weeks ago where he's got blockers out front. He had a literal convoy out in front of him, and he just kind of tucks behind the convoy, and he's just kind of jogging along, letting them clear the way up the road. Saubert, that guy out there leading that way. These tight ends have been absolutely money in the blocking element of things. And when you're running an outside zone scheme, you're going to be needing those tight ends and sometimes a little bit of the front men, almost like the de facto fullbacks off the edge there to get those blocks as the front guys so your running backs can clear through. Wide receivers were blocking their ass off. Cooper Kupp was great in that realm, had a couple of very key blocks in this game, but the offensive line across the board was getting push. You could tell from the Niners they were trying to protect against some of the stuff Seattle was wanting to do in the run blocking game because there was a point in this game where Sundell is trying to climb down to the second level and get to the linebacker on a key third down play. And the defensive lineman for the Niners gets up here in Sundell right around the jersey here and holds and pulls him. Gets called for it. It's a defensive holding penalty. They'll be on the lookout there. But I thought that also showed you that there's a little bit of that built-in fear of Sundell getting down to that linebacker at the second level, getting him cleared out, and that really then giving the lane then to the running back to get up the field and do a lot of damage. Walker was great. He made great cuts. His vision was on point in this game. When he did do a cut, it was very efficiently and then would get upfield very fast. He was at times pacing himself on those outside zone runs, not just pressing the hole, but letting the blocker set up in front of him, let the play set up fully before you hit the gear, and then hit the gear at that just right moment like he did. The timing is getting down to just pure perfection at this point, but it's also been refined down throughout the course of the season. And I would expect it to continue to even get better here as we get through the last couple of games of this football season. So much of the buildup of this game from a national perspective centered around Sam Darnold. And it was funny from my perspective because you had so many other great storylines coming into this game. The chess match that existed between Shanahan and Mike Macdonald, the different mismatches and matchups you had in this game going between these two teams and the Niners and what they've done and what it's taken for them stylistically to be able to overcome the injury situations that they had leading up to this football game. But no. Instead, this all really just centered around a lot of talk around Sam Darnold. And specifically, we had a lot of psychologists across the nation that are not only analysts when it comes to the NFL, but they're also clinical, and they know what they know when they're looking at a guy as far as his mentals are concerned, because there's a lot of looking inside of Sam and determining a lot of things from a lot of people. Weird kind of takes out there that were existing, where somehow Sam has some sort of mental deficiency that would hold him back and cause him to not only not win the game, but collapse, fall apart, breathe the reason you are going to lose. Well, that was not the case today. And while, yes, the Seattle Seahawks did not ask a lot from Sam, 12 of 17, 124 yards, a touchdown, that's 110 rating. And he didn't have to do a lot because this was a game where you had all three phases of your football in top-notch form. And when that occurs, you're going to get dominant wins like this. And why I know this is because I've seen this multiple times over from the Seahawks team throughout the course of this year. This is not the first time you've won this type of game this way. It's just the most beautiful version of it. Sam did exactly what he had to do for you to go win this game, understanding those strengths he has at his back. And if he continues to perform like this, as we've seen through the back half of the schedule, as the Seattle Seahawks have not lost a game since that Rams game, when there was that light bulb moment of, okay, I cut down the turnovers, we can just flat win. I still got to make my throws. I still got to execute the offense. But I got a rushing attack at my back. I got great special teams, the defense doing their thing. I got to stay in the pocket to be inefficient, pick my moments, and play a good brand of football that's not going to require me to put a cape on my back. And that's just what Sam did in this game. Plenty of good high-level throws in there as well. Him converting some third and longs, that beautiful throw to Kupp on the sideline early on, coming back later to Bobo and hitting Bobo of all people there on a route that was not the easiest to spot. You got a blitz there. Sam could be getting a little nervous that moment. Instead, stood tall, threw a beautiful ball there, got you that first down, kept the sticks moving, and of course you got the touchdown throw rolling to his left with that bad oblique. And I'm told that when you got a bad oblique to the side he's got it, when you're making that particular throw rolling to your left and trying to make that throw, that's the one that'll catch you. That's the one that's going to hurt you a little bit. But instead, letting it rip, man in his face, not falling away, not shying away, putting the ball into a very tight confine where there's a lot of hands trying to drift in there from a San Francisco 49er perspective. He had a couple of those throws in this game. We had to put things in a nice little tight window, hit those in those spots. Cooper Kupp stepped up big, leading the way for the Seattle Seahawks in receptions and yards. Third down, and Kupp is back and alive, making some big catches. I've been telling you guys that he's not washed. Now, maybe he's not the old Cooper Kupp of old necessarily, but he's far from washed. And I don't know where the nuanced ground's going to lie on that, but I still think he is a really great addition to this football team. And of course, he's been helpful in so many other manners that have been talked about from a leadership perspective, from a blocking perspective, like we got to see today. He was absolutely fantastic. You weren't able to get a Shaheed, but you were able to run that one fake there where you got on the end around and him out in front. So you found some manufactured touches with them. Again, you didn't have to throw much to Jaxon either because you just didn't throw very much. The offense wasn't required to do very much because it ran the football so well. The special teams was once again magnificent. Jason Myers hit both of his kicks and all the extra pointers. Michael Dixon averaged 50 yards a punt and had 2 punts knocked inside the 20. And then we got the Rashid Shaheed kickoff return. Oh man, what a return it was. You talk about the right moment, the right time for that kind of kickoff where you got a 49er team that just wants to hang in that game throughout the game. Just kind of hang around until late in the third quarter. And then maybe a shot of adrenaline helps push them past the finish line. You get on top of that team, you step on them. It's not a team designed to play from behind. You start to make them one-dimensional. This is a thing that sets you on that pathway to get that done. And Shaheed on the kickoff, as you can see it kind of set up initially, got to look back at some of the tape here, but it appeared like you got the free up man coming up, almost like Seattle let him come up free to allow them to provide the blocker to the other spot they wanted there to clear that path in front of Shaheed, knowing that Shaheed could basically outrun that up man, which is just what Shaheed did. He was able to go then capture that edge. He's out there stumbling. You got the kicker trying to trip him. That's where we got the flag coming in, but he was able to get in the end zone in 13 seconds. It might not have been the 12 seconds from 13 years ago in that Super Bowl, but it was close, and it had that same kind of feel like, ooh, this is a good sign for this day. That's the right kind of way for this thing to start off. Rashid Shaheed, what an amazing addition this kid has been for the 4th and 5th round pick. 2 kick return touchdowns, a punt return touchdown. He's been dynamic at times as a receiver as well, as they're trying to get him acclimated in that way. That's harder to do at times mid-season with a quarterback and receiver, especially as you're in the mix on a Super Bowl run. It gets tough. You got to kind of do it as you can, but especially too as well, when you look at so many of these games in the back half of the schedule where you're winning them so comfortably, you just don't have to throw as much. There's not as much required from him in the pass catcher standpoint of things, but he's finding a way to still pick his moments where he can, and he was impactful again today. The kickoff coverage units as well deserve a hearty applause, as they've been awesome throughout this year. This is why I'd say it's the best special teams unit all of football. It's not just because the kicker. It's not just because the punter. It's not just because what you do as a kick returner, punt returner. It's also for how you defend, and defend it all across the board. Another great game in that way. Sky Moore out there is very dangerous. This Niners special teams unit's one of the better ones in football, and yet you made them look like a pale imitation by comparison. We've had a playoffs filled with close games that came right down to the wire, the last drive, and here you've got the Seattle Seahawks blowing the doors off the San Francisco 49ers. There's something in that. There's something in the fact that the Seahawks are playing a brand of football that they have been able to replicate game in and game out in the back half of this schedule to the ultimate success, to blowouts, to winning games comfortably, to getting into situations where Drew Lock's getting snaps very early on in the third quarter. I've said it's not just the victory formation. It's not just the Drew Lock victory formation. It's Drew Lock now coming out in the third quarter. Man, that's the true representation of the type of dominant beatdowns that the Seahawks have been able to provide us throughout the course of the season. This team is so close to doing something so special, right on the edge of greatness, a defense right on the edge of ascending to legendary status. Just 2 more wins, and your Seattle Seahawks will be lifting a Lombardi trophy in the San Francisco 49er house. If that isn't a Disney finish to a storybook season, I don't know what is. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all else, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.